Hey everyone, Matt here. Thanks for downloading Seincast. You're listening to one of our early episodes, which means the audio quality, well, it's not that good. Plus, we weren't playing clips from the show yet. Starting with the second season episode, The Chinese Restaurant, you'll notice an improvement with our new microphones and the addition of show clips to the discussion. You'll just have to put up with the audio issues until then. Rest assured, it does get better. We had a lot of fun recording these early episodes and poring over the excruciating minutia that makes Seinfeld so great. Enjoy the show.
Yeah,
George.
It's Elaine.
come on up.
Hey, Benny, listen to
I never heard anything like this in my life. Listen to this.
This is exciting! This is exciting! Huh? Did I miss anything already?
Kramer, get in.
Kramer! Crazy man!
Hey, sit down. Come on, it's about to start.
Hello and welcome to Seincast. We're here to discuss everything related to this show about nothing. My name is Matt.
I'm Vinny.
How you doing, Vinny?
I'm okay, Matt. How are you doing today?
all right. This is our official first episode of Seincast. We did an intro pod that will be released on the same day, but we're here to discuss the first episode of Seinfeld, which is called The Seinfeld Chronicles. It aired July 5th, 1989, and we're going to be releasing this on July 5th, 2014, which will be the 25th anniversary of the show. Can you believe it, Vinny? 25 years since the premiere, which I believe you said that you saw back in 1989, right?
I believe that's my first memory of Seinfeld is sitting down watching with my parents, and I remember Jerry walking to the coffee table with his red sweatpants and his blue sweatshirt, and he's saying, "If you know what happened in the Met game, don't say anything. I taped it." So that's my first memory of Seinfeld. We go way back.
Way back. 25 years. It's just incredible that a show could, have premiered so long ago. It ended 16 years ago, and it's still pretty popular. Probably the most popular show in syndication right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One of them.
Well, to kick off our episode, I feel like we should discuss current Seinfeld news. Yeah. July 5th, the day this gets released, there will be a special Seinfeld night at the Brooklyn Cyclone Stadium. They're a minor league baseball team, is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Right. They're affiliated with the Mets.
Yes.
Right. Which is perfect since we know Jerry is such a huge Mets fan. There's going to be a special Seinfeld night where MCU Park is going to be renamed Vandelay Industries Park. Just looking over the website now, you're going to have mailmen in uniform getting to throw out the first pitch, low-talking PA announcer, a lane dancing contest, cereal eating contests. If you're named George Costanza, you'll be allowed to join the radio broadcast as a color analyst for an inning. The foul poles will be known as Festivus poles. All in all, this is going to be a big night to celebrate Seinfeld.
One of us is actually fortunate enough to attend that game. Who is that?
Well, that would be me, Vinny. I am the one attending the game. You
lucky
can't,
bastard.
You can't, unfortunately. I'll definitely take a lot of pictures, though, while I'm there and put them on our Facebook page. You can find us Seincast on Facebook and check them out there. Yeah, man, I really wish you could come with. It would have been a really nice experience, but
it would have been very nice.
Who knows? Maybe some of our future listeners will be in attendance at the game. It would be great to meet some of you guys and talk about everything Seinfeld. So today on the show, we're going to be discussing the pilot episode of Seinfeld, known as the Seinfeld Chronicles. But I thought before we discuss the episode, we could maybe discuss how Jerry, Larry, Jason, and Michael, I'm on first name basis with the cast and crew.
You go way back, don't you?
We go way back, how they all got involved. So let's go back to the 1980s, specifically 1988. Jerry's manager, George Shapiro, was really pushing for some execs at NBC to see Jerry's acts. And one night at I believe it was at a town hall performance in New York, a couple NBC execs saw Jerry's performance and scheduled a meeting. Executive by the name of Rick Ludwin, who was really the executive who is mainly responsible for getting Seinfeld on the air and for it to come back for future episodes, met with Jerry, and they discussed, any ideas that he had on a show. Jerry had really no idea up to that point.
I remember him saying he knew that getting an interview was a sign of him getting somewhere in show business, and to him that was all he he was satisfied with just that. He didn't have an idea for a show, but just getting an interview, sitting down with these execs was a big deal to him.
Right, like it's not like you don't want to dream big. I mean, he was pretty big at that point. He had done stand up on Carson. He had an HBO special up to that point. He was named Male American Comedian. I don't know who puts out the award, but he was definitely he was definitely rising up in the ranks of stand up comedy. But to think that one of his ceilings was to just meet with NBC to discuss a show and not have any ideas is pretty cool. You could tell that in this guy's blood was stand-up comedy, not, oh, let me get a show on TV or let me host a special. It was just stand-up comedy, and there were little dreams and goals along the way.
That's what I love about him is if you look at his career, if we fast forward to now, he didn't whore himself out as a big name just to get movie roles and other TV deals. He solely cared about his art, his craft of stand-up comedy, which is why he only has 1 or 2 movies to his credit. He just did Seinfeld, and then he took time off. Now he does the Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee web show. But really, it's all about comedy for him, and that's one of the things I love about him.
So after the meeting, which took place in L.A., Jerry, flew back to New York and was at Catch a Rising Star, which was a comedy club at the time, no longer there, but it was located on First Ave and 77th Street. He met with a fellow comedian by the name of Larry David and told him about the NBC meeting and maybe they'll be doing a show and, if Larry would be interested in working with him. Now, Larry was, like I said, a stand-up comedian and he wrote on SNL for a season, infamously only had, I think, what was it, 1 sketch air?
1 sketch on at 1:30 in the morning?
Or a little, I think the show ends at 1, so it would have been I think 5 to 1 or...
Okay, there it is, 5 to 1.
Yeah, we're very specific here on the show, right? I mean,
my apologies.
Have you seen that skit?
No, I don't know which one it was. I'd love to see it.
Man, I'd love to see it too. So Jerry mentioned his NBC meeting with Larry and wanted to know if Larry had any interest in developing a show with him. And, Larry didn't have any money at the time, so he agreed to it. But let's go back just real quick. Vinny, you know about a birthday party that... I don't think you were there at the time, but...
No.
You know of a significant birthday party that helps kind of cement this relationship between Jerry and Larry.
Yeah, in an interview with Carol Leifer, who's a writer on Seinfeld, she actually takes credit for the pairing of Jerry and Larry. They were both invited to her birthday party, and Larry didn't have any money to get her a gift, so he thought he'd write her some material. And at the party, I think Carol Leifer had a couple drinks, and she was probably a little bit too tipsy to go on stage. So she said, Jerry, why don't you read my gift from Larry? And sure enough, Jerry killed with Larry's material, and that was the first time you saw the blending of their comedy styles, which everyone always says Larry has a very dark comedy sensibility to him, and Jerry a very light. So you saw those cross-blended, and what you got was the first inklings of Seinfeld humor.
I mean, it's just incredible that just this off chance of, having Jerry work with Larry's material, that you'd actually have this perfect voice, that would grow into the show. After Jerry and Larry had discussed the possibility of developing a show, they walked over to a Korean grocery store and they just started cracking jokes and making fun of different items in the store. And, Larry realized this was a discussion you don't really hear on TV and it could maybe be funny. Jerry, I don't think really agreed with him necessarily. This mirrors the conversation between Jerry and George in, I think it's the Pitch episode. What are they discussing?
Well, he's like, salsa's become the #1 condiment in America now. And he's like, do you know why?
Because people love saying salsa.
And then George says, it must be hard for a Spanish person to order salsa and not get salsa. I asked for salsa, not salsa.
Right there, George was saying, oh, this could be the show, this could be the show. And Jerry, scoffs at the idea. And sure enough, that was taken from, real life between Larry and Jerry. The next night, after this, first discussion between the two about the show, they went to a diner, which I think we mentioned in our intro pod, called the Westway Diner.
We did. I was there.
Yes, we both went there. It's on 9th Ave between 43rd and 44th Street. We went during the day, but Larry and Jerry went at 1 in the morning and kind of, broke the idea that the show should be about how a comedian gets his material. That should really be the focal point. Maybe like a pairing of stand-up comedy with that where comedians get their ideas. The offer from NBC regarding the show idea was a 90-minute special that would actually fill in for SNL when it was off for 1 week. So Larry and Jerry were planning on writing, a 90-minute show, and it would be one camera, follow Jerry around throughout the city for a few days, maybe a week, and see what he experiences and how that would form his stand-up material. And then they would get to see him do the stand-up material at the end. However, Jerry felt that 90 minutes really was too much time and they couldn't suspend the story for that long. So they said, maybe we should shorten it to 30 minutes. And thus it turned into a sitcom pilot. Would you like to have seen like a 90-minute sort of Seinfeld episode? Do you think that could have worked?
Well, as a fan right now, of course, I'd love to see that, but I think it would have been tough back in those days to keep someone's attention for that long, especially if you had to wait till the end to see the act. If you're at that time, if you're just seeing two guys walking around in the store making fun of stuff, you're like, what am I sitting around for watching this? But I'd love if they had something like that in the vault. I'd love to see that today. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, it would be really cool. So Larry and Jerry met with NBC and Castle Rock, and they were going to discuss the 30-minute format, which, again, you can see a mirror image of this meeting in Season 4 when Jerry and George are meeting with, help me with his name.
Oh, Russell Dalrymple.
Russell Dalrymple.
Can you spell that?
Oh, geez. No, I can't. Wait, no, Dalrymple.
Not even close.
Ah, jeez.
I don't know what it is. I just know that's
I'm sure someone can let us know how it's spelled. But at this meeting, they were discussing the idea of a 30-minute format, and Larry wanted to keep the show one camera. And I think one camera would give it more of sort of like a film vibe, whereas the NBC execs wanted it to be a 3-camera, which was traditional for a sitcom. And this is sort of where we get that inspiration of George flipping out at the meeting and saying, we're not going to change the show. And Larry got rather irate, apparently, and said, no, we're not doing a 3-camera show. This is the show. It's 1 camera, which is pretty funny because, according to Jerry, the NBC execs are actually very open, and they were just throwing ideas out there. But right from the get-go, Larry's taking this very personally, which is an amazing quality. I love that about Larry, how passionate and protective he is of his babies, really.
I love that. And even if we could shift to Curb for 1 second,
Sure.
If you look at the way Curb came about, they did the one special called Curb Your Enthusiasm, similar to how they were going to do the special. And then it became Curb Your Enthusiasm, the series. But then there's also an episode, I don't know off the top of my head, but when Larry goes in to meet with HBO to discuss about a show, remember? And he argues with the CEO about shrimp, and then he gets up and walks out. It's kind of similar. I'm reaching there, but yeah.
Right, and
Quintessential Larry David.
Yes, totally. In that Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where he's pitching a show to HBO and storms out, the president of HBO, is it Lou Wasserman? Whatever the character's name is. Alan Wasserman, who, real quick, plays Grossbard in the airport episode from Season 4. That actor is playing the president of HBO. He says that Larry is known for this, I think, in that scene in Curb. He's like, oh, the walkout, he's known for doing this. So I don't know how many times Larry walked out of meetings. Nonetheless, he's just a very passionate, protective, creative genius, let's say.
A delicate genius.
Delicate genius, yeah. So writing the pilot, this 30-minute, 3-camera sitcom was really easy for Jerry and Larry, apparently. They had really good chemistry. There wasn't a lot of struggle. And Vinny, do you know actually what the original name for the show was?
I do, but...
Well, tell me.
Good News, Bad News?
Good News, Bad News was the name created for the show after the pilot aired. And
I got it wrong!
That was more for syndication. What the original title or the name of the show was while Larry and Jerry were writing it was called Stand Up. And it eventually became Seinfeld Chronicles. Okay, the only reason why Vinny wouldn't know that is because I just watched a lot of special features on the Volume 1 DVD set, and Vinny didn't. So I'm pretending like I'm an expert on Seinfeld, whereas I promise you, Vinny knows so much more about Seinfeld than I do.
Go ahead, take your moment. You can have this moment.
I'm going to enjoy this moment the best I can. So there were a few script changes after Larry and Jerry turned it in. About a week later, about a third of the script had changed, and Larry was pretty ticked off about that, as you can imagine. And he explains in this How It Began documentary on the DVDs that he tried to put as much of his and Jerry's material back into the script and removing NBC's material. He admits that he still has difficulty watching the pilot. I think we both agree, Vinny, that the pilot is a little difficult to watch.
Yeah, it's a bit antiquated, the clothes, the sets, the music, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I like it for the sake of completeness sake. I like to watch all my episodes in order, starting from Season 1, Episode 1, all the way through Season 9. But that's just me.
Okay, so let's say you want to watch the Bizarro Jerry in Season 8. Mm-hmm. Do you therefore have to watch all of the seasons, or will you just pop in the DVD and watch that episode?
It makes me feel uncomfortable having to hop in mid show, mid season.
You won't pick random episodes just to watch.
No.
You're like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to devote the next couple of weeks to just watching the show all the way through.
Well, I don't sit there 24 hours a day watching Seinfeld, but when I'm making breakfast, I'll have it in the background, or when I'm getting ready, I'll pop it in. It's almost to the point where I've watched it so many times now that I don't need to be looking at the TV. I can.
Vinny, I can totally relate, and I wish I had mentioned this in our intro pod because we're going to go on a lot of tangents here on the show.
Sorry,
unfortunately.
guys.
And I'll try to keep the podcast length appropriate. I'd love it to be 40 minutes, but with all of our rambling, it's going to be probably an hour. Apologies, but I can totally relate to not even watching the show, just listening. In college,
Which you did, yeah.
Yeah, I had digital files of the episodes, and I ripped the audio from all of them because at the time there was no video iPods or smartphones. We just had MP3 devices. I would rip the audio from these episodes, and then I would create basically a track listing of every single episode. And while I lived abroad in England for a summer, I would just walk around the city listening to Seinfeld episodes, and I knew the visuals so well that the audio was enough. Kind of like a little radio drama. I don't know if anyone else out there has done this before. I don't necessarily recommend it, but it is kind of it's kind of a nice way to always be enjoying Seinfeld wherever you go. So once the script was handed in to NBC and NBC greenlit the pilot, they started casting, and they first cast the role of George, and they saw a lot of well-known actors by today's standards. Did you know that Nathan Lane auditioned for the role? Also, Steve Buscemi, David Alan Grier, Brad Hall, who I believe you know.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus's husband.
That's correct, yes. I think they met at Northwestern.
They did. Big Ten school.
Big Ten school, there you go. Fellow Big Ten. We are Michigan State grads. We might have lost a lot of listeners by mentioning that, but yeah, Vinny and I met at Michigan State, so we have a lot of love for Big Ten schools. And
also Larry Miller, who is Jerry Seinfeld's best friend.
Yes, Larry Miller was sort of the second in the running behind Jason. Jason didn't know that. I think Jason felt Larry would get the role over him just because he's Jerry's friend. Larry Miller, though, a lot of Seinfeld fans would know as the doorman from season 6. Now, Jason has actually talked about auditioning for the role and how he did a blatant Woody Allen impression on tape, and in person pretty much did the same thing, and they knew from his tape that he was going to get the role. I guess he didn't, but at the time of his audition in front of everyone, Larry Miller was there, and Jason felt, well, obviously Larry's going to get the role over him, being Jerry's friend. And I'm just wondering, Vinny, would you like to have seen Larry as George over Jason?
It's so hard to answer that. It's like saying, what if you plucked out one of the Beatles and put another one in its place? So had I never known Jason Alexander, we might have been asking the same question right now.
Who knows if Seinfeld would have been the phenomenon it was with Larry in the role? But I am interested in seeing what Larry would have done, only because we have this amazing version with Jason already in the role. So after Jason was cast as George, they started auditioning for the role of Kramer. And we all know Michael Richards as Kramer, but also in the running were actors Steve Vinovich, Tony Shalhoub, and also Larry Hankin. Larry Hankin might not be a familiar name, but I'm sure you recognize his face. He's a big character actor. He's been in, Home Alone, Billy Madison, Breaking Bad.
Friends, he was the neighbor.
He was the neighbor in Friends. I've never seen a full episode of Friends before.
Friends is good. It was what I gravitated to after Seinfeld, I think, because they ran back to back. And those first couple seasons of Friends are solid, so it's still very good to rewatch as well. Highly recommend.
So Larry Hankin is known, as a character actor in a lot of movies and TV shows, but do you know, Vinny, how he ties into the Seinfeld TV show other than auditioning in real life for the role of Kramer?
Why, yes, I do, Matt. He auditioned for the role of Kramer in the show and got the role as Kramer. He's Tom Pepper.
Tom Pepper, yeah, the guy who steals the raisins at the audition. So filming began in the spring of 1989, and it was interesting to note that Michael Richards could actually tell that Larry wasn't very happy about things and sort of felt out of the loop on set. Larry tried talking to the director about maybe changing a few things while they were filming, but nothing really came from that. And Larry, at the time, felt that things weren't actually going to be very good, which I think is just really interesting. This wonderful opportunity for two stand-up comedians to put their show out there, and things aren't already feeling right. It's they've kind of handed their baby over to the big network to sort of do their thing.
I love though the fact that like Larry was a poor comic in New York, and he gets this potential big break to have a network show, and rather than just kind of bite his lip and just collect his paycheck, he stuck by his guns, and he was constantly nipping at the heels of these directors. And actually, George does that in the season 4, the pilot episode. George will express his opinion to the director, and the director is played by Tom Sharonis, right? Who's an actual director on the show. Then he's like, let's take a 5. And then Tom Sharonis goes over to the execs, and he's like, that little bald guy better stay away from me, otherwise I'm going to rip him a new one. So I think that's another Larryism that got put into the show.
Absolutely. Great call. So the pilot was filmed, and it was reviewed by, the cast and the NBC execs, and they all liked it. They didn't really know if they had much of a chance, and sure enough, when they showed it to a testing audience, they didn't really like the show. A lot of the people in the testing audience felt the cast was too weak, mainly Jerry and George, too New York, and apparently Rick Ludwin, one of the execs, said that audiences thought the show was too Jewish. Neither of us are Jewish, and we love the show. So
yeah, I'm a fan.
One of the comments from the audience testing was that you can't get too excited about 2 guys going to the laundromat. Jerry's loser friend George is not a forceful character. Jerry needs a stronger supporting cast. Why are they interrupting the stand-up for these stupid stories? It's funny because and I sort of feel this way about the pilot a little bit. I like the stand-up a little bit more than the A story. I would almost rather see a 22-minute run of Jerry's stand-up.
You want to see a set, essentially. Yeah.
I kind of do. That doesn't. I don't feel that way about most of the Seinfeld episodes. Just the pilot in particular, and that has. It's not that the stand-up is so good. It's just that the A story isn't the strongest. And we'll get into this later. Since we have 179 episodes of Seinfeld to fall back on, the pilot episode really isn't as bad as maybe the testing audiences thought it was, just because we know what the show will become. We know these characters.
I think because it was so grounded in reality compared to the other shows at the time, the audience perhaps didn't know what to make of it. Mm-hmm. So, is this is a comedy? Right. There's jokes, but like it's just minutia of daily life: going to get laundry, picking up somebody at the airport,
overanalyzing, having a girl come over to your apartment. What is that?
Yeah,
it's not one of those cliche plot lines of the boss is coming over to dinner and the dinner's burned. What are we gonna do? Yeah, it was very different, and ultimately, due to the negative audience reactions, NBC did not pick it up for the fall schedule. So it was scheduled actually to premiere in the summer of '89, and summertime in TV terms apparently is known as garbage dump theater, and this is when execs would air series pilots that had sort of failed, just as sort of a place to put them, so it's not sitting on a shelf. Hey, we aired it, but guess what? No one's probably going to watch it. However, though, the show got decent ratings, but it was still a dead show. The creative powers tried to pitch it at Fox, but they also passed, so here's this show that has no future. However, one of the execs that we've mentioned before, Rick Ludwin, really cared about this show, and he championed for it. He reallocated money that was for 2-hour-long specials of his, took that budget and put it towards 4 half-hour episodes of Seinfeld. So in a sense, by shifting this money around, he was able to get an order of extra episodes for Seinfeld that would make up their first season. And this would become the smallest sitcom order in television history, just 4 episodes. You look at most first season episodes, what would you say, Vinny, they're about?
I'd say anywhere from 12 to 24 episodes, right?
Right,
if you have
yeah.
confidence in the show.
Sure. 12 just in case that it doesn't really pan out. They can stop at mid-season, 24 if it's an entire season.
But 4?
But 4, yeah. So a whopping 5 episodes for the first season.
Jason Alexander in the interviews even refers to them as that confidence order of 4. So they knew, he knew that the show wasn't going to get picked up. It was just...
Do you think Rick Ludwin was just trying to get enough episodes out there for the show to have some legs, so they could actually try to gain an audience?
I would think so. He's always known, as you said earlier, about championing the show. So I think he knew something was there, and that Jerry was a bright guy and a talented comedian. So he should be credited as the one for saving Seinfeld, because he did see a quality.
Now, of course, when they got this extra episode order of 4, Jerry was thrilled at the news, and how do you think Larry felt about the offer?
Larry's quoted as saying he didn't want to do it, right? He just wanted to do his pilot, collect his money, and go back to New York. and the anxiety that came with, oh, I got to write 4 of these things now. As we all know from George and Larry, that it was those demons in his head were just running amok.
It's typical Larry. I mean, he's the kind of guy that is obviously very good at what he does, writing comedy, but when someone actually proposes or maybe gives him the job, he can maybe talk himself out of it, or maybe he's not sure if he really can do this, but obviously he can. Now, however, the episode order came with a caveat from NBC. They needed one change to the show, and Vinny, can you tell us what that one change was?
They need a girl in the show.
They needed a girl in the show, right? And we'll get into the girl next episode, since she's not in this one, but we can't wait to talk about her because she is one of our favorite actresses out there today. I think you and I have probably a bit of a crush on her.
Yeah, big soft spot for JLD.
Now that we've talked about the history of how the pilot came to be, figured we could actually get into discussing the episode itself. All right, so Season 1, Episode 1, The Seinfeld Chronicles, also known as Good News, Bad News for syndication. This originally aired on July 5th, 1989. It was written by Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld and directed by Art Wolfe. So, our first scene of Seinfeld is appropriately Jerry doing stand-up. This is, I think, a great way to kick off the show. It was one of the execs' idea, I believe, Vinny, to start the show with stand-up, right? It was either Warren Littlefield or Rick Ludwin.
Yeah, originally I believe they were going to open the show which was the following scene, at Pete's Luncheonette. The purpose for this show is stand-up comedy, so why not just start the audience off with Jerry telling jokes, doing what he does best?
Now, the thing that kills me the most about this pilot episode, really, is the music. The version we watched before our discussion today was the original version of the pilot. Since airing, they've changed the music, and it's become the typical Seinfeld, theme. That's the Seinfeld theme there. The regular Seinfeld theme was written by Jonathan Wolfe, which was, used throughout the series run, but the first theme music was written by Jeff Epstein. And this music, Vinny, how would you describe it? It's like
quintessential 80s, like synthy,
kind of cheesy, cornball music that's, hey, you're watching a sitcom right now. Isn't this great?
It really dates the show when it starts off with that music and you try and watch it today. It's tough to get through.
It's rough. It's amazing how much the Seinfeld theme written by Jonathan Wolfe helps this episode, because you can watch an alternate version on the DVDs where they put in the proper Seinfeld title and you have the, there it is again. Now, the next scene is at lunch with Jerry and George at Pete's Luncheonette, a bizarre place that we never see again in the series. Another element of the scene that we never see again is Claire the waitress, who I believe was supposed to be a reoccurring character played by Lee Garlington. She's sort of a, like a sassy character to George, which is funny and all, but I don't really know how much she brings to the scene. I can definitely see where her character would have gone if the show had continued with her. Now, reportedly, Jason Alexander said on a recent episode of Kevin Pollak's podcast that one of the reasons Lee Garlington wasn't asked to come back, she kind of got on Larry's bad side. She had recommended some changes to the script or the character, and as we discussed, Larry was already upset with the changes that NBC made to the show. Now you have an actress wanting to change elements of her character or the scene, and that didn't rub him the right way. This is coming from Jason, though. So
and knowing what we know about Larry now, I'm granted she may have not known this back in 1989, but you want to tread lightly when you're going to be recommending something for Larry David to change.
Yes, definitely. I think Lee Garlington does a great job. It would be awesome if we could ever get a chance to talk to her one day to see actually what happened. But reportedly, from Jason Alexander's point of view, she might have been a little too open to discussing changes to her character in the show. But Vinny, do you want to tell us a little bit about what the scene is about?
Sure. George and Jerry are having lunch, having a little bit of coffee, and Jerry's inquiring about this woman who's coming into town, coincidentally from Lansing, which is where right near where we went to school. This woman, Laura, that he met when he was doing a show, teaches political science. This is where we actually see, I like to refer to him as old Jerry. He's sweeter, he has more warmth about him, but he's talking about this girl, and he's kind of admiring her. She's great, she's pretty.
You're right, though. Jerry is a lot nicer in this scene and this episode as a whole. He's a lot more caring towards the opposite sex. I'm not saying Jerry's a misogynist, but he's definitely sensitive. He really cares about this Laura. He's been thinking about her a lot. He likes everything about her, and he's so excited. But when he tells George that she has to come in for seminar and maybe they'll get together, George sort of
He puts the kibosh on that pretty quick with the negative negative attitude.
The overanalyzing of certain words that Laura has no interest really in meeting up with Jerry and maybe having the same kind of relationship he's looking for. Now, I'm sure we've probably both gone through this experience while dating, right? When you are attracted to someone and you just overanalyze every single word that they use.
Every relationship for me is an over analyzation.
Right.
So I quite identify with this. Although, unfortunately, I usually am more on George's side. So I'm always thinking negative. The worst outcome is usually what's running through my mind.
And it's got to be even tougher nowadays with texting and this like impersonal way of talking to each other. Where
Can't tell tones from a text.
Can't tell tones. You can't really gauge how someone is feeling unless you just put it all out there.
That's what those emoji cons are for.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe if she sent Jerry a wink, smiley face, or
little floating hearts, then he would know better.
Oh, absolutely. So the scene then carries over into a laundromat scene where Jerry is still kind of overanalyzing, what Laura might have meant by saying maybe they'll get together, and George is still trying to talk him off the ledge and say, listen, this ain't happening, she's just trying to be nice. He does sort of that weird, this is the signal.
There's the blatant Woody Allen impression coming out.
Yes, the blatant Woody Allen impression, which I touched on earlier. Jason was known for channeling Woody Allen with the character of George, going so far as to actually buying glasses during his audition to sort of look like Woody Allen.
I also think in this scene, this is one of the ones where Jerry kind of interjects one of his stand-up bits into the scene, where he's talking about George is upset because he wants Jerry to be done with his laundry, and Jerry says, you got to let the cycle do its thing, and the machine knows what it's doing. It'll finish when it's ready. And Jerry says, you can't over dry, can't over wet, you can't over dye, remember?
Yes. It's funny, like sometimes you wonder, was this episode plot-wise very thin? Was the plot really only about, I don't know, 9-10 pages, and then the rest of it is filled in with the stand-up scenes and little moments in the scenes themselves where Jerry is doing part of his material. Really, when it comes to plot, this is a pretty thin one. We're not really jumping around to too many locations. We're not handling different characters' plots. It's just Jerry and this girl with a little bit of stand-up comedy sprinkled in. And appropriately, we go back to Jerry's stand-up where he's talking about laundry, and this really helps, kind of like bridge in the original concept of the show, which is, let's see where comedians get their material from. Jerry's at the laundromat, now he's doing a stand-up bit about laundry. And this actually, I think, is my favorite piece of stand-up from the episode. The idea of laundry day being the most exciting day in the life of clothes, and the washing machine is like the nightclub of clothes. What do you think, Vinny?
Well, this is why I like Jerry's stand-up so much. It's because it's got a very childlike spin on it, and it's as if a kid is watching the dryer go up and around and around, and he's thinking about what if socks did have feelings? How would they act? So it's very cute.
Yeah, Jerry is one of those great comedians who he doesn't need to be vulgar. He doesn't need to swear. He doesn't need
no swear words.
No, not really.
Love that.
Every once in a while it might come out, but he's by no means a vulgarian. He's actually a pretty safe PG comedian. We then go to Jerry's apartment, which, is probably the most iconic set throughout the series. This version, however, not as memorable, in my opinion. There's a lot of weird colors, a lot of blue and oranges. Did you notice anything else different about the room?
There's no bedroom, right?
Yeah, there's no bedroom. There's just a bathroom. There's no hallway between the living room and the bathroom. It's just right into the bathroom. There's also kind of like a weird area by his office, by his desk. That's all. Where
his computer is normally set up. Yeah.
Yeah, all windows there. There's like a dartboard. I don't know if that was a common fixture in the later sets. There's no dining room table either, which I thought was surprising. Jerry's eating on his eating cereal at 1 a.m. in front of the TV on the couch.
Now, did he have his shelves that are usually behind the couch, behind his dining room table, that have all his board games and his VHS tapes on there? Is that there in this episode?
That's not actually. The big shelf, like entertainment center, isn't. I think it's like a low table, and there's a chair back there. It's like a lower table with a lamp,
okay.
And I think there's some books and a football behind the couch. We are really overanalyzing this scene. I'm sorry, everyone, but like as if you're like us and you really love Seinfeld and you love overanalyzing every bit of it, then come on.
Well, we like to look at what videos he has on the shelf and what board games he plays. I know Child's Play is back there.
Child's Play 2, actually.
Oh, excuse me, Child's Play 2. But it's kind of cool to see, what does Jerry Seinfeld watch in his spare time?
Yeah, totally. I think all those movies they're either they're probably Castle Rock Productions. I assume that's why it's such an odd assortment of videos and why it doesn't change over like 5 seasons. Jerry is watching the Mets game. Right off the gate in Jerry's apartment, we know that he loves cereal, loves the Mets, and we meet a pretty big character here. A character by the name of...
Kessler.
Kessler. Is it Kessler or Kramer? We're not sure, but for the sake of this episode, we're going to just refer to him as Kessler, since that was his name in the script, and it's what Jerry calls him in the scene.
He's only referred to once in the episode, and Jerry says it very quickly, and it's very difficult to hear. But when Kramer spoils the game for him, and he's like, the Mets blew it tonight, huh? You hear Jerry go, oh, Kessler, it was a tape! I taped the game! That's the only time you hear Kessler. Otherwise, you don't have a name for this character.
You really don't. And we find out that there's a bit of retconning going on in the betrayal. This is pretty common, I guess, trivia, but we learn that Jerry thinks Kramer's name is Kessler because of the buzzer in the lobby. And when Jerry moves in, he calls him Kessler, and Kramer corrects him and tells him, actually, it's Kramer.
I think that's just a nice little homage to paying tribute to the pilot. So I think that's a nice little touch. Can you also explain, does retcon mean retro continuity?
Funny enough, I actually learned the term retconning from reading Star Wars novels and comic books growing up. That's usually where I hear retconning. It's usually when people realize, hey, we made a mistake. We need to change it somehow within universe without ignoring it completely. There's a lot of issues in these early episodes that aren't retconned, such as I think Jerry says he has a sibling, George says he has a sibling, George's father is bald, his mother is bald too. Yeah, a lot changes, but this is definitely I think a neat little Easter egg in the betrayal. They did not need to retcon this whole Kessler Kramer thing, in my opinion, but it's kind of cool that they did. It's just a little Easter egg there, I think, for us fans that would get them.
Yeah. Larry David was also a really big fan of continuity, and he states in the interview on one of the DVDs that he would wonder why a character would appear on a show one week and then the next week he wouldn't be there, and they would never explain what happened to that character or what happened to the story. So that's another thing I loved about Seinfeld early on, is they had these arcs with characters coming back and forth into the fold, and even stories that would progress throughout the season versus just having the story of the week, and then that story gets resolved and you never hear about it again. So kudos to you, Larry David.
Definitely, Larry David. You're all right in our book. Appropriately, Kessler asks for food right out the gate, which the character Kramer does throughout the series. Jerry talks to Kessler about how he totally misread the whole thing about Laura, and sure enough, Laura calls. And what does she ask for? An airport pickup.
An airport pickup, which is huge. And also to stay over. That's even huger.
Even huge. It's the hugest thing you could possibly ask. Now, did you think it was a little weird that she was calling at 1 a.m.?
You could argue, but I think we've talked previously that maybe Jerry had. Oh, he had a set earlier that night, right? He did stand up. Normally, a stand up set starts at 9. You go till 11 or midnight, depending on how many comics perform. So maybe he had told her previously, "Hey, I'm getting off at midnight. If you're free, give me a call. Let me know." Because this is back in the day when they did not have text, they did not have email. So the only way to get a hold of somebody was a landline. So I buy it. It's a little weird to have a married woman.
She's not married yet, actually. She's
excuse me. She's a fiance. But an engaged woman calling a man at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's open to interpretation.
Definitely. It was just something that felt a little weird because, when you're watching the show for the first time, everything's lining up to say that maybe this woman is looking for like either a hookup or to explore her relationship with Jerry a little bit, and that's mainly because Jerry set it up for us. But that's a pretty big.
It's the point of view of a man who's attracted to a woman. He's seeing what he wants to see, right?
Absolutely, sure. I guess there's also the issue of her, being engaged. I kind of get the vibe from the later scene that maybe the fiance isn't entirely on board with her staying with a guy that he has never met before, and maybe she's calling Jerry when her fiance is asleep, or maybe in the other room. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
Now you're reaching.
Yeah, I know. I want to know more about Laura and her fiance. I don't
care
care about
that actress down.
Those would be my notes if I were in the audience watching this pilot. So we get an act break, and then we come back to the apartment. Jerry and George are carrying in a mattress. This is for him to sleep on, or maybe Laura to sleep on. It's a little confusing, as I guess, to where Jerry sleeps, since he doesn't have a bedroom off the bathroom.
You never see him sleeping on the sofa, but a couple episodes down in season 1, we get to meet Jerry's mom and dad, and his first dad, by the way, his first actor dad. But Jerry comes home and says, "See, this is what you want to come home to, your parents in your bed."
Good
and
point.
Sure enough, his parents are in the living room.
There you go. Good call. Now, George gives Jerry a hard time, for bringing in an extra bed for a woman that wants to sleep with him. So obviously, George is kind of flip-flopped on his opinion on the situation.
That's
now.
because he was affected by the caffeine.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, he says that the caffeine that he drank in the coffee shop, it's affected his judgment. But now he believes that Laura wants to maybe hook up with Jerry. But again, Jerry's being the nice guy. Jerry's being the considerate guy. Just, having one bed for Laura and him to share.
This is also a topic of discussion in later episodes when George and Susan invite Jerry and Elaine to the cabin. Elaine asks Jerry, "What's the sleeping situation?" And you remember what Jerry says? Same bed, underwear and a t-shirt.
You'll be naked, of course.
There we go.
Yeah, so while Jerry's character later on in the show changes, right now he is pretty sensitive, pretty nice, sweet, considerate. Kessler also enters the room and gives Jerry a hard time, and Jerry again expresses that, this is someone he likes. He's not trying to score on spring break. George tells Jerry that, they need to leave, they need to get to his set because he's double parked, which I feel there's something about double parking. I feel like that gets thrown out in so many episodes of Seinfeld. Like, It's always this thing that George is stressing over, whether it's double parking or finding a parking spot.
He doesn't want to get a ticket.
Yeah, he doesn't want to get a ticket.
Parking is a huge deal in New York, so naturally it's a huge deal in the Seinfeld universe.
Before Jerry leaves for his set, he wants to clean the bathroom, and George argues that, filth is good, which I'm curious, Vinny, if you were to have someone come over that you really liked, wouldn't you start cleaning everything?
Yes. Well, yeah, I clean I'm Windexing the little peephole. I'm always a big advocate for cleaning the entire room when I'm going to have a guest.
If this is someone you're really attracted to,
I'm going to clean it even more so.
Right. You're going to walk around in
bleach.
You're going to walk around in those like a Dexter, uniform or like a.
Yeah, I'm going to wear the little surgical booty so that I don't attract any debris into my room.
Right. Now, George is, telling Jerry that filth is good, and, he should always do the exact opposite of whatever his instincts are, which I think is one of the coolest little character moments, because we know from the season 5 finale that George kind of comes to the realization that nothing in his life has turned out the way he thought it would, so maybe he should start doing the opposite. Now, I guess you could argue that George always knew this, and it wasn't until, maybe his life hit.
Yeah, until he finally hit bottom, what did he actually decide to try this? And lucky for him, it works when he tries it. But we had to wait 5 seasons before we saw that happen.
Right, it got him out of his parents' house, got him a job with the New York Yankees, got him a woman, just a bunch of stuff. So yeah, maybe we should all try that. I mean, I think our lives are going pretty well right now. I don't need to. I guess yeah, maybe. Okay. maybe there could be some aspects of my life that we could change. But yeah, apparently doing the opposite definitely works for George. It just takes a couple of years for him to really put it into effect. So right when we leave this scene, George tells Jerry that he has 25 minutes until he has to be on stage, which felt kind of weird. Like, George never really seemed that concerned about Jerry's stand-up act. Like, when he gets to the club, he kind of felt like a manager in this moment. I feel like that was just a part of, like, real life kind of, like, encroaching in the scene.
Or it was just a way for the writers to say, hey, you got to be going. Or to also let you know that he is performing later on, and then we see him at his next stand-up appearance. I don't know.
That's a great point,
Probably
though. Yeah,
not.
because the stand-up material is really, like, it's really tied into the show. It's not just, let's cut to stand-up material for no reason. They were really trying to justify why we're showing these stand-up pieces in the show.
And technically, this pilot is about the life of a comedian, so he's rushing. You got to make your gig. You're on stage in 25 minutes. Let's go.
And the stand-up material is pretty much about, having a woman coming over and cleaning. And I really particularly like the part about the dating world. A date is like a job interview at night. So then we're at the airport. Jerry and George are waiting for Laura to arrive. And George and Jerry are talking, about how to greet someone? Well,
George being George appears to know everything about the dating world, and he says it's all going to be in the greeting. The first thing she does and says when she sees you is going to dictate how the weekend goes.
Right, and
well, first, what does George say? He's like, anything in the lip area is good. A hug is good. If she sets her bags down before greeting him, that's all good.
I actually agree completely with George. Like, I totally will overanalyze how someone greets me, or the tone of someone's voice, or the expression on their face. I mean, to the point where I probably seem a bit neurotic. But no, I totally agree with him. Like, you can really tell a lot about someone just by how they greet you.
There's also Jerry's explanation of the hug where your hips are 8 feet apart, which is so true. It's such an awkward hug when just your shoulders are touching, and there's this whole buffer zone between you guys. I don't know how to interpret that.
Yeah, I guess you don't want the genitals to be near each other. Is that right?
Perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. Laura does show up, and how does she greet Jerry? She puts, I guess they call it the surprise blindfold greeting, which is incredibly bizarre. I don't think I've ever been greeted this way.
Yeah.
Maybe when I was like a kid, but not as an adult. A grown man who hosts a Seinfeld podcast with his best friend.
But it's a playful greeting. I would have interpreted it as, she's like, I would have taken it as a good sign.
Yeah, also too because she's touching his face. Like, who knows what kind of like physical relationship they had in Michigan. I would think if there was a girl I had a crush on and she's comfortable, putting her hands on my face. This sounds so creepy, but what I mean,
let me touch your face.
Let me touch your face. But what I mean is, like, that's pretty, like, she's comfortable with Jerry. She's not like walking up, tapping him on the shoulder or shaking his hand. But then they go into this weird two-hand clasp shaking thing.
The interlocking of the hands as if they're playing Mercy, like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. It's really weird.
Yeah, that's really weird. I don't think the surprise blindfold greeting, I mean, to someone like Jerry is a little weird, but I think that the clasp greeting makes it really awkward.
George also talks about the handshake and interprets that, which is something today that is very tough to interpret because I still want to go in for the handshake, the traditional handshake. A lot of people are doing the fist bump thing now, and there's this thing where somebody does the clenched fist, I do the open fist, and then it becomes really awkward. And some people also do the handshake with there's a 3-parter where you snap your fingers at the end, and it's really tough.
Oh, I hate that whenever someone does the snap handshake, like when you pull your hands apart and someone snaps. If you're not on the same page with them, they're gonna snap, and you're not. You're gonna try to snap, and it's like
you look
this,
like a doofus.
Oh, absolutely, doofus. Absolutely.
We didn't plan this. Could you have let me know and been like, this is gonna be a 3-parter with a snap? Okay, go.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I have to feel out. I have to, tell what he's doing.
Right.
George also talks about the hand sandwich, which I don't think you can pull off with a man. Perhaps I don't know.
Really? See, I'm.
Do you do the hand sandwich?
I'm a big fan of the hand sandwich. I think it's intimate. It's not. I would say it's a little bit more intimate even than doing the handshake pat on the back. I think like the handshake pat on the back is sort of like a friend bro thing that
like a brother, brother,
like a brother thing. Maybe if you're not comfortable enough with a full on hug, you do the one handshake, one pat on the back. The thing I like about the hand sandwich is it's intimate. It's more. I think it's a sign of care, of affection,
so
not attraction, but.
Perhaps you only do it with somebody you really care about versus just an acquaintance or somebody you see at the gym or at work.
Yeah.
Hence the meaning of this fist bump phenomenon that's going on now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, totally. All right. Let's. I think we spent about 10 minutes talking about greetings.
Is anybody out there still?
Yeah. Is this thing on? Hello. So after Laura arrives and they head off, we then go to Jerry's apartment where Jerry and Laura are getting settled in. She's taking off her shoes. She's undoing the top button, revealing
There's that button again.
Revealing the second button that makes or breaks the shirt. She asks for some wine. She turns down the light. And I'm sure most guys, if you're attracted to someone, would probably interpret this as, oh, wow.
Those are signals.
Those are signals. Maybe it's from like just being married for the past 3 years. I interpret this as like Laura's just had a really long day and she's really tired, and here's this guy that's trying to get with her, thinking that she's totally sending him signals. I don't see these as signals. I really don't. But
as a single man, I'm praying that they're signals, but as a realist, I know they're not signals.
Of course, yeah. And to be fair, if this were the first time I were watching the show, I might have a totally different opinion. Maybe it's because I've watched this episode so many times. I know they're not signals, but I mean, my God, there's plenty of times I've just like, after a long trip, I want to take off my shoes. I don't want like a lot of lights on, and I want to,
You just want to hop in the tub with some wine and candles.
with a box of chocolates, some nice music, rose
But
petals.
a credit to the writers though for writing this character in such a way that you don't know, is she going to Jerry or is she just had a long flight and was tired? You don't know, which is brilliant on their part.
Right. Like I think it's a good balance where I think she's totally being herself, that is someone who has a fiance, and maybe she's being a little maybe she's not taking Jerry's feelings into account because they obviously hit it off when they met in Lansing, but was she engaged at the time or was she engaged since they met? Who knows? So while, Jerry and Laura are sitting on the couch, and Jerry is obviously very excited about this, potential relationship he's going to have with her, the phone rings. And did you notice how Jerry answers the phone? He does his...
Love that.
Yeah, like he hits it with his fist.
With the flat of his fist, and it pops off, and he catches it with the other hand.
Oh, it's incredible. I love that. I don't own a rotary phone. I don't know if you do,
we
but
still had those around.
Oh, I'd love to try that. I think the rotary phones you can buy nowadays, they're just, cheap plastic. You probably would really damage it. But I know those old ones were pretty heavy duty, so I would like to have done that.
We had those growing up.
Yes. Oh, definitely. And I really miss that sound of the rotary phone dialing. On the other line, someone asks for Laura, and he hands the phone to her. And Laura has sort of a one-sided conversation with someone about her flight, and she's going to stay the night, going on a boat ride. And the convo gets a little tense, and she says, that they're not having this conversation, which eventually leads to her telling Jerry, never get engaged. And Jerry's soul is crushed, You can literally see someone reaching into his chest and pulling at his heart because he's devastated to know that this woman is already taken. You're familiar with this feeling, I'm sure, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, I am as well. I think everyone gets a little heartbroken when they build up some imaginary potential relationship with someone and find out they're already taken. Maybe this is the start of the less sensitive Jerry, because he never is quite this sensitive in later episodes. Early on in the series, he definitely is a caring person, but I think as the series goes on, he gets more and more selfish. And
the scar tissue is hardening around his heart.
Yes. So maybe if it weren't for Laura, we might have a kind, sensitive Jerry all the way up to the end. Someone who would have helped the guy getting mugged in Latham, Massachusetts, and stepped in.
He could have been a free man now if it wasn't for Laura.
Yeah. This takes us to the last scene of the episode, which is stand up, and it's all about, kind of ties up the whole episode where Jerry talks about, who knows what women are thinking, how you don't get the signals, what do men want more than anything? They want women. And this,
Do you know how to get women? No.
No, not at all. The only idea that men have is the car horn honk, right? Have you ever done that, a car horn honk?
No.
I haven't either. It's not something I've ever felt the desire of, if I'm going to communicate that I think someone's attractive, to honk at them. You're driving by, you honk, they notice you're honking, they interpret it as, okay, this guy finds me attractive, and they're off. Like, it's just a bizarre way of communicating your feelings about someone. I mean, I guess you wouldn't come up to someone on the street and say how beautiful you are, or how attracted you are.
There could have been somebody about to mug her, and the car was like, beep, beep.
Right.
Somebody behind you,
Oh, right. It's like the old urban legend, the guy in the back seat with a knife and the trucker flashing his lights. And do you know that story? All right, never mind. Maybe someone out there knows what I'm talking about.
Have you got an hour?
But yeah, I guess we're pretty much at the end of our episode here, talking about the pilot, scene by scene. This is probably a really long episode. Our episodes typically won't be this long. We just had a lot of behind the scenes that we really wanted to talk about. And again, we're sort of figuring out the show. That is Seincast, what it's going to be. This is kind of our pilot, talking about the pilot, and who knows, by the time
a pilot about a pilot?
Pilot about a pilot, right? Hopefully we get picked up. We'll see. As the show goes on, we'll probably keep the conversation a little shorter because we know you guys don't have 2 hours every week to hear two guys ramble on about Seinfeld. But for right now, we're just going to sort of overanalyze and talk about the making of the show as much as possible, because once we get into season 3 and 4, I think the trivia gets a little smaller, maybe not as interesting as it is in the earlier seasons. But we found that there was a lot of trivia and history about the pilot episode and a lot of the earlier episodes that we wanted to go over. And in fact, we still have a little bit more trivia to go over here.
There's more trivia?
There's more trivia, Vinny. More trivia. There's never enough trivia. And most, if not all of the trivia came from the fantastic DVD sets for the entire series. This is from the Volume 1, Notes About Nothing. Did you know, Vinny, that in an early version of the script, George was also supposed to be a comedian?
I did know that. I remember that earlier from my watchings, but I did not know that George's one of the names that they were going around talking about for George was
Bennett, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that. That was something you taught me.
Right, yeah, it's a weird name. I can't imagine Jerry and Bennett walking around, but for some reason the name Bennett works as a stand-up comic, but George is so perfect for the character we got, I think.
He's a perfect George. I don't see him as anything else. Bennett sounds like a guy who lives in Martha's Vineyard and has a sweater tied around. I don't know. I see an affluent. Yes.
No offense to our listeners named Bennett.
No.
Oh no, if you're named Bennett, please email us or reach out to us and let us know what you do for a living if you live in Martha's Vineyard. We'd love to hear from you. Also, a little bit of trivia, which I love this because I'm a huge fan of The Muppets, and one of my favorite Muppet movies is The Muppets Take Manhattan from 1984, and I cannot believe I never realized this, but in that movie, Kermit works at a restaurant called Pete's, and the exterior of that restaurant was lifted and put into the pilot, and that's what Pete's Luncheonette is. This just totally blew my mind. I'll throw a screen grab up on our Facebook page. You can check it out there. So any fans of The Muppets and Seinfeld might get a laugh out of that. One thing we didn't talk about in the apartment scene was Kessler's dog. His name was Ralph in the script. He was never mentioned by name in the show. Apparently, Jerry had a bit about dogs and like their enthusiasm that was going to take place after that scene when Jerry and George are bringing in the mattress and you see Ralph the dog. However, they realized that material about the dog doesn't really tie into the episode as a whole. So they replaced it with stand-up about, women and dating and stuff like that, which really kind of like tightened up the show. So as a result, Ralph makes an appearance for no reason because they dropped the stand-up material. So Kessler has a dog in one scene, in one episode, and you never see him again. So in the original press release for the Seinfeld Chronicles in 1989, this is sort of like the summary of the show, totally gave away the ending. It revealed that Laura was, in fact, engaged. And Vinny, who do you think was most upset about the ending to this episode being ruined?
LD, Larry David.
Yes, Larry David. Larry David was pretty upset with NBC for revealing the ending to his episode. He seems pretty passionate, doesn't he?
Yeah, I love that about I love that about him.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be upset too if I wrote this show and the network totally ruined the ending.
If you know it's coming, you're watching it, you're like, oh, that's not a signal. She's engaged. She just wants a place to stay.
He insisted that the network promotes all future episodes with just the two words "new episode." This pilot re-aired on July 5th, 1990, exactly a year from its original air date. This was after the new order of 4 episodes, and the ratings were so much higher on the second air date that this secured them a second season. Hopefully in a while we'll get to season 2, and in a couple of years we'll get to the final seasons. One addition to trivia is noting any kind of connections to later episodes. Were there any moments, Vinny, in this episode that you could maybe tie into a future episode of Seinfeld, kind of like the second button comment or the doing the opposite?
Well, one moment that we really like later in the series is when Kramer and Jerry are sharing a bed together, and Kramer is reading the magazine, and he goes, "Oh, look at that! Patio furniture's on sale." But you see Jerry and Kramer or Kessler on the couch, and Kramer just picks up the magazine and he tears something out, and Jerry looks at him very disdainfully, and Kramer licks it and puts it back. It's just a nod to a future occurrence, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. Like that imagery is there. Like Jerry on the left, Kessler on the right. He's reading a magazine, and Jerry looks annoyed. Again, kind of maybe a reach for a lot of listeners, but We definitely see it here, just because we're such huge fans and we're trying to tie the show in together as much as possible.
I think the big one is the cleaning of the bathroom and their interpretation of how that's going to be perceived.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, that's right. In the season 5 premiere of The Mango, Jerry is talking to George about the tub being love. If you're cleaning your bathroom for a girl to come over, then obviously you're in love and she's a girlfriend. There's other factors, but cleaning is a big deal.
Who is that girlfriend in The Mango? Is that Karen? The risotto broad?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I love how Jerry... I like Karen.
Yeah,
she's
great.
We can maybe this is something we should get into too.
Oh boy.
I don't want to alienate our female listeners because we should probably do the same for Elaine. But I really would like to hear your thoughts on the girlfriends in the guys' life.
I got top 5 girlfriends and boyfriends for each character.
Well, maybe we could, as we go along, we should have our top 5, not tell one another, and when that girlfriend shows up, be like, this girl is my number blank in my top 5, as opposed to just overall thoughts of every girlfriend.
I like it.
Yeah.
I really like how in that this is going to the episode The Mango, but how Jerry broaches the subject. He goes, "So, you like her?" And George goes, "I think so." Or he's like, "How can you tell?" Like, he doesn't even know. And then they dive into you on your hands and knees, tub, Ajax, everything. He's like, "Yeah, I think you're in love."
There you go.
So there's your tub as love.
One of my favorite connections from this episode to a later episode is in season 9, The Slicer, in that George gets a new job at Kruger Industrial Smoothing, and he realizes that a few summers ago he got in a fight with some kids on the beach because he thinks they threw his clothes and towels into the water, so he grabs their boombox and throws it into the water. He calls it the boombox incident. And he actually says it took place in the summer of '89. And as we know, this episode premiered on July 5th, 1989. I like to think that the boombox incident either happened right before this episode or right after it. But nonetheless, we're like in that time period of when it occurred.
Jason Alexander has considerably more hair on the top of his head than he does in the later episodes in season 1. And that the camera clerk in the season 9 episode will say to George, "Boy, you lost a lot of hair." So I kind of like that tie-in too. Like, it's just, as a fan and as we nerd out, it's kind of cool to say, okay, there's the hair he had back then.
No, you're totally right. What we should do is get a screen grab of George in the Seinfeld Chronicles and put it next to the photo of Mr. Kruger and his family with George in the background, and just see how the Georges look. Like, if they look similar. We'll actually do that, and we'll put that on our Facebook page. You can check it out there. All right, I think that's going to do it for us, Vinny. I think we've gotten everything out there that we need to. Our runtime right now is pretty long, so apologies everyone. If
this really is a podcast about nothing.
Yes, it really is a podcast about nothing. Like I said before, we're not going to make a habit of having our podcast run this long. It's just going to be for the first couple episodes to get through a lot of the trivia and history of how the show came to be, but then we'll make our later episodes a little shorter. Before we go, we're going to score the episode. I like the pilot episode. It's not one of the classic episodes. I don't think it would be in the top half of my favorite episodes, but
agreed.
But at the end of the day, it's kind of fun to watch because the characters aren't completely formed yet. We're missing one of the Seinfeld 4.
We are?
We are. The sets aren't quite what we know them to be. Things are a little off, but I think that kind of gives it some charm because you realize that the creative team behind this really had no idea what the show could be. And that, to me, is perfect. A lot of people want shows to be firing on all cylinders right out the gate. And I find sometimes that a lot of shows that fire on all cylinders right out the gate don't really have anywhere to go from there. And they tend to kind of get worse as they go along. Some of the best shows out there, you watch the earlier episodes and you realize that they didn't really have this thing figured out yet. And you can see that throughout this pilot episode. I think it has a lot of charm. I think it works with the series as a whole. I think, though, on its own, if I were watching this pilot without any context, I don't really know if I could see it becoming a series. So it's great that we had someone like Rick Ludwin to champion it and really push it forward. So that being said, I'm going to give the show 5.5 blindfold greetings out of 10. Kind of a low score. I guess it's an F if you look at percentiles, but I think that this show is pretty good. It's not one that I to revisit too often, but it has a lot of charm, and yeah.
5.5. How do you have a blindfold greeting? Do you just put one hand over the eye?
Yeah, you just use like maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, you just use one finger to cover one of the eyes, or to
All right.
just leave a little opening there.
I like that this show is the origin of how it all began, so it's kind of near and dear. I agree, Matt, with a lot of the points that you said about the show. It really took some time for it to gain its stride. Much like this podcast, we don't know what the hell we're doing right now, but hopefully we find our way. But it is the origin. It is the show that got it all started and led to all the other great episodes that we came to know and love. So I'll give it 6 buttons that literally make or break the shirt.
Sounds great, Vinny. Well, that's officially going to do it for the first episode of Seincast, talking about the Seinfeld Chronicles. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us, seincast@gmail.com, like us on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter, @Seincast. I'm Matt.
I'm Vinny.
Signing off.
See, now to me, that button's in the worst possible spot. The second button literally makes or breaks the shirt. Look at it. It's too high. It's in no man's land. You look like you live with your mother.
Are you through?